Imagine this, a single dad, sitting in a quiet cafe on a rainy evening, waiting for a friend who never arrives. He doesn't know that the door will open, and instead of the person he expected, a Chinese heiress will walk in, carrying with her proof of a betrayal so deep it could break him, or, perhaps, save him. Friends, before we dive in, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this are crafted to touch your heart, inspire your soul, and remind you of the resilience we all carry inside. Ethan sat at the far corner of the cafe, his coat still damp from the drizzle outside. His little daughter, Lily, was back home with a neighbor, and for the first time in weeks, he had allowed himself to believe he could relax. He had arranged to meet his best friend, someone he trusted with his life, because he needed advice. Being a single dad was not easy. Bills piled up, Lily's school fees were late again, and though he smiled for his daughter, his heart carried the weight of loneliness. Tonight, he thought, he would lean on a friend. But minutes stretched into an hour, and still, no one came. Just as he was about to leave, the cafe door opened. A young woman stepped in, elegant yet visibly shaken, her long black coat brushing the floor, her eyes searching the room until they landed on him. Ethan looked up, confused. He had never seen her before. But she walked straight toward him with determination, her hands clutching a leather folder pressed tightly to her chest. "Ethan Carter," she asked in a quiet but steady voice. He nodded cautiously. She sat across from him without waiting for permission, and in that moment, Ethan's life began to shift. Her name was Mei Lin, the daughter of a wealthy Chinese businessman. To Ethan's disbelief, she explained that she knew his friend, the very man Ethan had been waiting for. Mei Lin's family had been entangled in business with him, and she had uncovered documents, contracts, and correspondence that revealed a web of lies. Ethan's friend was not the ally he thought he had been using Ethan, and worse, he had betrayed him in ways Ethan could not yet grasp. She slid the folder across the table, her hands trembling slightly. "You need to see this," she whispered. Inside the folder, Ethan found papers that made his stomach twist. His best friend had been slowly draining the small business Ethan had been trying to build after his wife's passing. Every ounce of Ethan's trust, every hope he had placed in that friendship, had been turned into a weapon against him. The cafe seemed to spin as betrayal hit him harder than any physical blow. Mei Lin, watching his silence, spoke gently. "I know what it feels like to be betrayed by someone you thought you could trust. My own family, they hid truths from me for years. That's why I had to tell you." Ethan wanted to collapse under the weight of it, but then he thought of Lily. He couldn't afford to crumble, not when she needed him. He looked at Mei Lin, this stranger who had walked into his life carrying both pain and truth, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel entirely alone. They began to talk. What started as tense silence turned into an exchange of stories, Ethan about losing his wife, about raising Lily with nothing but love and grit, Mei Lin about the loneliness of wealth, of growing up in privilege but never knowing if anyone cared for her beyond her family's fortune. Days turned into weeks as Ethan and Mei Lin stayed in contact. She helped him untangle the financial trap his friend had left him in, connecting him with people who could guide him. Ethan, in return, gave Mei Lin something she had been searching for all her life: authenticity. No masks, no hidden motives. Just the raw honesty of a man who was trying to raise a child and survive. And slowly, Lily began to adore Mei Lin, pulling her into their little world with a child's innocent trust. But healing was not simple. Ethan had to confront his friend face to face. That meeting was brutal, filled with accusations, denials, and the undeniable truth of betrayal. Ethan walked away not with vengeance, but with clarity. He didn't need to fight dirty. He only needed to protect what truly mattered, Lily, and the new bond he had found with Mei Lin. It was in letting go of bitterness that he found strength. The story reached its most emotional point one night when Lily, holding Mei Lin's hand, looked at Ethan and said, "Daddy, maybe we can be her family too. She looks lonely sometimes." Ethan's eyes filled with tears because his little girl had spoken the very truth he had been too afraid to admit. Mei Lin wasn't just helping them, she was becoming a part of their lives. By the end, Ethan realized something profound. Betrayal had nearly broken him, but it had also opened the door to something new, something unexpected, a friendship, perhaps even love, built not on lies, but on shared struggles and trust. And as for Mei Lin, she finally found a place where she belonged, not because of wealth, but because she was loved for who she was. So if you're watching this right now, remember, sometimes the people who walk into your life unexpectedly are the ones meant to change everything. Betrayal may wound you, but it can also guide you toward the truth, toward healing, and toward the family you didn't know you were searching for. Friends, if this story touched you,